Hi everyone and welcome back or welcome to my channel if you haven't been here before, and if you haven't been here before, please subscribe to the bilingual family, which is mostly me attempting to speak English, and I almost forgot my intro right there. So in today's video we'll be reviewing the new VIEVE Ninetease palette, which is this beautiful palette right here with all of the lovely cool tone colors. If you want to see more of this palette, if you want to see me apply this palette with a different look or the same look that I have on right now, please keep on watching to know what my thoughts are. So from what I've gathered, the VIEVE Ninetease palette is basically an ode to the good old 90s. You could say I've been through the 90s, you know. I'm a 90s kid, 18th of January, my birthday. So I've been in it, you know. Consciously, I don't know, but I'm a 90s kid and you're not taking that away from me. So it's an ode to the 90s, to classic, iconic 90s looks, and a lot of the times they were more on the cool tone side. I was very excited. This is probably my first like palette purchase in a very long time. I don't really purchase eyeshadow palettes that regularly anymore, but this one is a cool tone palette and I do find myself kind of lacking those tones in my makeup collection. So this palette on the VIEVE website is 52 euros, so it's definitely not a cheap palette. That's a lot of money. I do find 52 euros for an eyeshadow palette like probably the most that I want to give to an eyeshadow palette, to like a makeup item. And they describe the palette as grunge meets glam. With these cool tones, it is very easy to go towards more smoky eyes, something that looks a little bit more bold because they are more of those like gray tones. Talking about the packaging, I do find the packaging, mine is already slightly dirty because I've been using it. This entire palette for some reason reminds me of Versace. So this entire palette kind of reminds me of Versace. I don't know why, but it does look quite luxe, probably because of the combination in gold and black. Inside of the palette you have these beautiful shades, but I do find the shade selection beautiful. It's just that when it comes to the shades, when I received them in real life, I was like, oh, that's quite light. I was wondering how someone with a deeper complexion than myself, which isn't hard to do because pale AF over here, I was wondering how some of these shades would actually show up. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about the actual formula, and in the meantime you can see me applying a look. We're gonna start with the mattes because I feel like the mattes are the best formula in this palette. There are only two, obviously, mattes and shimmers. I am very happy with the mattes. They are on the soft and quite powdery side. Like when you tap your brush in, there is a lot of product that comes up that doesn't end up on your brush. Like there's a lot of kickback or kicker, but despite them being like powdery, they're not like dusty or chalky. It really is like a soft, creamy and smooth formula, especially to the touch, but also on the eyes. No skipping, there is no patchiness. They are just very velvety feeling to the eyes. The only issue I think I have with the mattes is that because they are so soft and almost buttery and creamy, it almost feels like they kind of mesh into each other after a while, and they blend so well together that it can look quite one-dimensional and you only have like one look. With this look on my eye right now, I think I have about 4 different matte shades and I don't feel like you can see that. You want eyeshadows to blend in a way that they don't travel everywhere, but they also don't really stick to one place. And with this kind of formula, I feel like it blends very well, but they mesh together very easily and then it becomes one color. It's like you're blending the colors together to recreate a new eyeshadow color instead of blending them together. So there's like a very nice smooth transition, and because of that, like I said, it can sometimes look a little bit one-dimensional. I feel like the fact that they're one-dimensional also stems from the fact that the shades aren't really that different from each other, and like I said, I think I would have liked to see a little bit more variety in the depth of each color, so you can have a little bit more options between like a very light color and a very dark color, and in between those are like shades that are very different from each other but are a little bit more varied, is what I want to say. Right now it's very like light, dark, and there aren't really any like in-between colors that could create a more dimensional look. All in all, I do really like the matte shades. I love the way that this blends and I love the way that they look on my eyes. It really makes your eyes almost look textureless, which isn't the case obviously, but it kind of gives you that appearance from very far. I think these shadows are perfect for for some of those like soft glam beats, it's really perfect for that. Then when it comes to the shimmers, unfortunately, I think I'm used to a lot more sparkle, are not necessarily my favorite thing about the palette. I do prefer the mattes to the shimmers. I think the problem with the shimmers for me is that they are very mature shimmers, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I feel like because they are quite finely milled and not as sparkly as I am used to, they do just look a little bit less impactful, and it almost looks as if you just put a little bit of a satin on your eye. I do prefer them a lot more when I, for example, wet my brush and then apply. I think I wouldn't have minded if this palette was like an all matte palette. When it comes to the pigmentation of the shimmers, I do find them quite pigmented, like not necessarily in sparkliness, but in the color itself. They're also quite opaque, not skipping, no patchiness. And I personally, I've been enjoying using this palette. This is, I think, the third look in 3 days that I've put on my eyes. You know, so I do like it if you are looking for something to kind of break the mold of eyeshadows palettes being warm toned. I think this is a very great option because I don't particularly at the moment can remember a specific palette that looks exactly like this that is cool toned. In my opinion, I do find it to be like a pièce unique. A pièce unique. Flemish accent is coming through. Pièce unique. And I think for being as unique as it is in that makeup industry wise, I do find it to be very, very good, but I think there are probably a few things that they could improve. But all in all, this is a beautiful palette. I've been loving experimenting with these like cool tone shades on my eyes, and I actually quite like them, to be honest. On my Instagram, I also should have by now shared an Instagram reels where I do a little bit of a different look with this, and there you can really see the difference between the shimmer that I used on top of the VIEVE one. So yeah, that is, I think, my very brief review of the VIEVE makeup eyeshadow palette, the Ninetease palette. I hope that you enjoyed this review of the VIEVE Ninetease palette. I do recommend it if you're looking for something else than warm toned and very colorful palettes and are looking for that kind of like cool toned 90s ode. I think it's a really cool palette. I love the packaging. I will be using it. I think it's very unique again. There are just some things that I've noticed and I'm quite nitpicky. I think that's everything for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I will be so glad to see you in my next one. And to do so, you only have to subscribe to my channel, leave a like or a comment down below, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye! Two hands.